Our intended presenter for our 415 vignette here is not in the meeting right now, but fortunately we have lots of experienced LibreText users who we've tagged to run the various breakout rooms and other things. So in literally 60 seconds ago, I asked Stefanie Leacock if she would be willing to present a little vignette for us about how she's used LibreTexts. And she, whether it's good judgment or not, said she would. So she may or may not have a screen she can share to show stuff. Anyway, she's going to take us through some things she's done with LibreTexts with literally zero preparation. Nonetheless, it'll be an example, right, of what she's done in class. So go ahead, Stefanie.
Hi, thanks. Such a treat to be asked to do something at the last minute. I am going to share my screen. I just closed about 1,000 tabs, so you don't have to see everything I had open. So again, my name is Stefanie Leacock. I am an instructor of biology at the University of Arkansas Little Rock. I got invited to participate in LibreTexts in 2018-ish, 19-ish, I guess, when the sort of big grant was being submitted, and there wasn't a ton of content for biology, with the exception of sort of existing materials like OpenStax for introductory biology. There wasn't a ton for genetics. And I really was looking for two things when I agreed to come on board. I was looking to reorder the way I teach compared to most commercial genetic textbooks. Begin with Mendelian genetics, which Mendel did not know anything about DNA. And so it's not a very modern perspective on genetics. So order of materials was really important to me. And second was incorporating current research so that my students have the idea that genetics is happening now. It is not like a book of facts that's already been written and done. So those are the two things I was looking for. And so what I'm showing you now is just my page with my course. I'll just kind of guide you through to kind of show you how I've done it. I started with a lot of remixed, not necessarily a lot of remixed material, but remixed material that came from a bunch of different sources. And that is another advantage for me, is that some of my material came from sort of existing genetics textbooks that were sort of had really been put on in early stages, introductory biology textbooks, just to get that like basic DNA knowledge. But also a lot of biochemistry textbooks have content that overlaps with genetics. So I was able to pull from a bunch of different sources. So I really liked that aspect of it. I'm gonna try to find a page that I know is good. So hold on. So I'll give you this example because I know this has a feature that my students like. So mitosis would be something I would expect my genetic students, since this is an upper level course, to be a little bit familiar with, but I don't mind telling you that they have forgotten a lot of what they learned in introductory biology. So the content on this page is actually remixed from a couple different videos. So for example, this is interphase, often overlooked phase. So I added a video link from YouTube to this page. And then I have added another video illustration there. And then here is an example of a video that I made myself, which explains how to work a problem related to this. So how we count chromosomes, how they go through the different stages. And one thing that I did that I won't show on my screen since it has students' names, but I created a hypothesis group. If anyone's not familiar with that, a web-based annotation platform. And so my students, as part of their assignment for every unit, they had to make comments on the LibreText. And so some, for example, on this video, tons of comments saying this was hugely helpful to understanding how to break down the problem. And then, but they can also say like, that figure didn't make sense. Like that isn't explained well in the text. So as I'm going through this summer, I can use their comments to guide that sort of someone had that figure in the presentation about feedback and improvement. And so I use the students as the sort of feedback generators. I am, and this page doesn't have any, but I think on a different page, come back here. I was gonna highlight, I think it's under structure. So I've just started working with the H5P and adapt to try to integrate more assessment into the book already. So here's an example of a question where students could, I'm just gonna put in a wrong answer and you can see that. We'll get the wrong answer and they'll get a little hint. So adding these interactive elements to improve their ability to test themselves as they go along. So overall, I had a really positive experience, despite the fact that it probably wasn't perfect when I used it the first time in fall 2020 is when I teach this course every fall. So I'll use it again in the upcoming semester. I don't know, Brent, do you want me to show more or do you want me to have questions or?
I think that's totally up to you. Time is not something we're short of right now. So if you have another, I don't know, nifty, helpful thing, I think you could do that. But otherwise, we can just let questions guide what you show also.
Yeah, I think I'll just open for questions. I have used, oh, well, let's see how I'll go over here. A lot of people may already know, let me see, it's gonna, I'm always looking for different ways to record sort of problem solving. And so I was just gonna show some of the things I record as just PowerPoints. But I've also used an app. I think there's a video in here. Oh, so this one looks like I was recording. So I have a Surface Pro so that I can use a pencil to draw. And so this helps me record a lot of problem solving questions. I've also used an app called I Explain, which is another like whiteboard type of recording app. So that's just something that I found helpful to sort of have students see how I'm going about solving the problem. They hear it in my own voice, and it's sort of consistent with what is being presented in class.
Excellent. So we have a question in the chat from Frank about YouTube videos and captioning. And so I don't know if you know the answer to this or Del may know an answer as well.
Yeah, so I know that I have been sort of going through, and I'm definitely not I would be caught at this point by the accessibility police, but I would hope they would take my word for it that I'm working on it. I have been going through some of the YouTube videos that I have and correcting that captioning where I find errors. So if Delmar wants to add to that answer. So I know that in the same way with my images, not all my images yet have correct alternative text for screen readers. But again, that's something that I'm aware of. It's on my radar. It just, takes time to get through all of those things to make those right. And so that's one way that I would also count on students to say, here's something that I found that needs to be corrected.
Yeah, they would have to be reviewed for a proper accessibility check. I mean, the YouTube is not that bad, but it's also not that great. And there are alternatives in order to be able to do it. That's the reason why we have the accessibility team, in order to go through that and help in order to facilitate that. I'm not entirely sure what the accessibility team's current state is in regards to captioning, but I know that that's one of the major thrusts that they want to go about doing. Do you think you can comment on H5P, because you've been working also on H5P, but you didn't say anything about that?
Before we do that, can you tell me, is the compliance issue simply poor quality of the captions, or is there something else to it?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes, but again, this is one aspect of accessibility that I haven't turned my Eye of Sauron on in order to be able to master.
Gotcha. Okay, Stephanie, go to H5.
Yeah. Yes. Do you want, Delmar, do you want me to show the platform or just show where it's integrated?
Show whatever you feel like comfortable doing. And
Okay.
I'll be talking about it on Friday, but it's nice
Okay.
to see it in action.
Yeah, totally. Hold on 1 second. Let me. Oh, nope. My nightmare is people watching me work on my computer. Okay. Okay, I'll just pull up a question. So as Delmar just mentioned, so H5P is one platform for creating questions that can be used basically on any website. So here's an example of a question that I wrote the other day. So I'll just show you how it looks by using the edit. So let's say that I wanted to edit it, it would open up the same sort of menu. So the question goes in here, the answers go in here. I will say it is not necessarily different than, say, my campus uses Blackboard for its LMS. I find this easier to work with. I find editing questions in Blackboard super clunky, really hard to edit and proofread because of the way the interface is. I have found this easier to work with. So creating that here, you can do, for example, hints or comments for different scores. I haven't done that for all my questions. Over here is the different, so you can pull your question into the correct library, add tags, and then, for example, I've included these in the library. You could also turn it off if this is some private question.
Let me give you a little bit of context, because I kind of threw you out there or pushed you under the bus a little bit. So part of the homework system that we have, the Adapt homework system, capitalizes on 3 different technologies. So it's sort of a composite-based system, which means that you have the ability in order to select the technology that's best suited for your field or for your specific interests. H5P is a technology that's been around for a few years and certainly grown a lot in terms of handling auto-graded homework. And it is it's gotten popular because it's simple in order to be able to formulate, but the trade-off of having it simple to construct means it's also has very simple capabilities. But as long as it handles what you want to do, it's reasonably fine, although there are other issues dealing with security, accessibility, things like that we can certainly talk about. Anyone who works on the LibreText can create these auto-graded assignments and embed them into your book and use them formatively, or using them summatively through the homework system. I pasted in the chat the access code, so if you guys want to, you can certainly register for an account. I'm not sure if this was sent in one of the emails that Brent or Amber put out, but you can log in and you can start playing, and you can start to work with it, and you can even embed it directly into your class. Of the 3 technologies, the other 2 are iMath AS and WebWork. This is the one that's the easiest in order to be able to at least master the basic principles in a very short workshop-based system.
Yes. So, so I'll give an example. So I think, trying to remember where all my questions are. Oh, it should be in my. So I also, so let me see, I think I got back in this one. I have a question. So here, for example, here is a question that was made in H5P. And what I can do is just turn on the edit so that you can see what it looks like. So again, this shows that I had a page that I remixed and that this is the Forker start location. Actually, these are my own learning objectives that I then added in there. So you can see all the page. So this is where, and I think editing, it will be a topic tomorrow probably. But so this is where actually that H5P, this is the program, I don't even know programming words, Delmar. This is the embedded from the thing. And I did this one this way before I knew that I actually only need to type in the number of the question. So don't be alarmed by this amount of text. So I just pasted that in from this H5P server. And so that's what it looks like here. But then when the student sees it, they just see the question. I'm going to cancel that. So those are just questions that I've created, again, for formative student self-assessment. In my sandbox, I've begun building assignments that I can use for homework to be assessed. So here, I think this is an example. So here's where I use the question set option in H5P to create a page with, I think there's like 10 questions in this set. And so this, I'm hoping, will be used through Adapt for my students to do their homework here in the fall. But again, I'm like brand new to this since the last LibreFest that I helped with. So this is very much work in progress. But so for example, they could do, they could answer all the questions. It goes to the next question, makes a nice little sound, etc. So window up there. So that's sort of an example of how all of this can sort of come together. Other.
How do your colleagues think about you doing this? Or what do they think?
So I will tell you that my department is very isolated. People don't really talk to each other in my department. So that can have its pros and cons, right? One is I can use my LibreTexts and no one is gonna pay attention to me. We have a new department chair starting, but my former department chair was incredibly supportive. Dr. Belford, who is also here, is in the chemistry department. So I'm in biology, and obviously we work closely together. And so people on our campus are familiar with it and supportive, but I wouldn't say that most people in my department even pay attention to what I do for the most part. So I know that's a bit of an unusual circumstance, and it has its pros and cons. I have been trying to be an advocate, but I don't usually get much response from my department.
It's not an unheard of situation.
Questions from others? I wondered, Stefanie, one thing I think it's important that we point out in this workshop that we don't always succeed at, which you mentioned specifically, so I want to ask you to develop this a little further. You talked about that it doesn't all have to be done right the first time, that you've been doing it in stages and a little by little. And I want, anyway, I'd like for you to expand on that maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, It definitely wasn't perfect last fall, but it was enough of a framework that we could build on. I had the first part of it, like for the first few weeks, we were pretty good. By the end of it, so even now, I haven't written what I would call like my last chapter. Needs to be further fleshed out. But I think that for me, I think that the fact that I told my students this was created with you in mind was the best connection that I could have built with them. Knowing that I'm not making them buy a 300-page textbook that we're going to skip half the content in, and saying, you know, I made this for you and I want to hear your feedback. Is really just, I think, overcomes the imperfection, right? Because you're acknowledging, I know that this is imperfect and I'm asking you to help me make it better. And I think our students are totally willing to do that. They have really good comments and really good insights into what's helpful, right? Just because I make it with the intention of being helpful does not mean that it helps them. And so if you give them the chance to say that, I think that they're more than willing to come along with me on that journey. And I think that the fact that you build this with them in mind means that they know that you've thought about them in advance of the first day of class, right? That you didn't just pick a book and make them buy it and then figure it out along the way. So I had a really good experience with it. You know, of course, no one wants to have typos and errors and things that don't make sense, but, you know, but the personal aspect of it means that you're getting a benefit there. And it wasn't super imperfect. It was fine. I mean, and everyone here, I'm sure, has paid for a respectable textbook and found errors in it, right? I mean, that totally happens. I found a huge error in a commercial textbook I used for a different class, like a fundamental error that changes the whole meaning of DNA in a commercial textbook. So I don't think that, you know, the goal of perfection is really should hold you back from giving your students that opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. Any other questions?
If you like, Delmar, I could demo a little bit of what we've done over here also with H5P and Adopt in chemistry.
I'm not sure what the time is set up right now. I'll let Brent take a look at that. We could certainly hang around afterwards if people want to see your examples, or you can present it on Wednesday if people.
I'm just trying to help Stefanie out.
Well, no, we do have a little more time, so I think that would be really great. So first, I would like to really thank Stefanie for stepping up. I mean, it literally was 60 seconds notice. I've never even imagined asking someone to do that before, much less do it. So thank you. And then Bob, yeah, give us maybe 10 minutes on
make it,
your H5P problems.
I can make it very quick. Let me just open up. Are you seeing my screen?
Not quite yet, it's working on it.
It says you're sharing.
Yep, there we go.
Okay, and the screen you're seeing, I have 3 of them, says introduction.
Yes.
Okay, what I did is I set up a lot of H5P modules and I integrated it with the Adapt system for my preparatory chemistry class. Obviously, we were COVID. The class was being held in Google Classroom, and these on purple are the LibreTexts class book. The green is the Google Classroom. The orange is my LibreTexts homework system, and the red is the Adapt homework system that they were graded on, and their assignments were due for the midnight of the day after each lecture. If you go to one of my learning modules, we'll jump to nomenclature very quickly. At the end of every module, I have a test yourself application, which is where I put my formative assessments. And the test yourself applications are all H5P like Stefanie has. Now, this particular one has actually 100 questions embedded into it. Each of these is 10, well, it may not have 100, excuse me. This one has 10, but there's 10 of these. And so all of these are different questions on nomenclatures the students drag and drop. And then when they feel that they're ready, they can go take their ADAPT quiz, and the ADAPT quiz is graded. But also, none of these H5P have feedback. So if they go to the homework section, I have another entire site that I set up where they, now this is nomenclature, so there isn't much feedback, but if this was a mathematical problem, the actual mathematical equations would be shown there. So the H5P is very good for giving quick feedback. Within the ADAPT system, you can set it to grading, but it's difficult to show formulas of complex equations. And so I sort of mixed these together. I happen to have chosen a chapter that didn't have, you know, there isn't much guidance I can give you if you don't memorize how to name things. And suddenly my computer is not going back. It's frozen. Anyways, that's some of the stuff that we did. I can go to my other, why is this not, okay. Let me go back to go to something that might have more learning modules. So I just thought I'd mention that, but there's a lot you can do with, went to the same chapter. There's a lot you can do with H5P and with LibreTexts. I also, this is a general chemistry class. And so I really do put the test yourself. That's where I use these. And H5P has a lot of different things. We have a bunch of videos that you can stop the video at one point, ask a question, then play it. You can have these sliders where you take two pictures and you can merge from one picture to another. If we need more time, Elena, who I think is lurking, or she left us. She left us. No, she's here.
I'm still here.
You want to demo some of the stuff that you're doing right now?
It's not really ready to demo. I mean, if you want me to, I can show. Are you talking about ADAPT integrated in LibreText?
Anything you feel like, sure.
Okay.
Or if we could find some of the sliders that you did last year with Amagado.
Oh, that will take a while to find us because they all migrated to the new server.
Can I mention something quickly, if I may? Can you show that last slide that you had, that website that you had open? And this is a key issue with working with H5P. Is it okay? H5P is a very graphical system. It's really graphical. It's really beautiful in order to take a look at. Now pretend that you're blind. What do you do here? And that's the problem, that a significant number of H5P problems don't actually meet up to standards of WCAG 2.1 or standard ADA compliance. It's actually a relatively small subset off of there. So while you have access to a lot of capabilities, whenever you have H5P, you have to evaluate whether or not you really should be using it appropriately. And we can help you with a list of types that do satisfy the requirements. And the state of California has been quite particular about doing this, but their rules are technically the same rules across the country. It's just that many other states don't quite care as much about this thing as others, but it seemed like several people did mention accessibility on there, so it's worthwhile in order to address.
Bob, while we're here, can I ask a question that was asked in my breakout room? I have not done a printed version of my book yet. Is that something you've done? Someone
yes,
make a comment on that.
Yeah, one of the really nice things, let me just jump to one of the really nice things, I don't know if Delmar said this, but if you go to print a book and you have any YouTubes, it auto generates QR codes onto the YouTube so that if they have a printed book, they could scan it. So here's a book, and if I right click, now you can, Delmar can show you the correct way to do this, but I'm just showing one page. But you can print the whole book, and it's if you properly embed your pictures, it will not put any pictures across a page break. And then the videos, now I don't know why they're not showing the pictures. Most of the videos will show the screenshot, but there'll be a QR code where the video is. And so that's, very impressive to me. And then the other thing, as Delmar was saying earlier, you can also put your LibreTexts onto a Raspberry Pi, and then you can broadcast it, make your own hotspot Wi-Fi with a Raspberry Pi, if you want to go that far. There's amazing things that Delmar's been putting together here.
There's another way of getting around the hotspot problem, which is just put the PDF onto an SD card.
Okay,
and
so
you can drop the SD card into the mail for 55 cents.
So that's the quicker way. Delmar now has this button up here. Just click the button, full book, click the button page. And it just generates the page for you.
Fantastic. So I won't go so far as to say that those of us at LibreTexts are constantly flying by the seat of our pants, because that's the way we schedule things. But I will say that we are obviously pretty good at it, because we've pulled out however long that was, 35 minutes of, I think, pretty darn good content from Stefanie and Bob. Thank you very much. Let me stop the recording here.